Hello, lovely students. Are you ready for a lesson that is going to give your advanced vocabulary and grammar skills a much-deserved boost? Well, today we're going to do just that. This video is long, but trust me, it's going to be worth every minute. I'm going to help you speak confidently in everyday situations, but we are pushing things to the extreme because you're going to learn how to talk about everyday scenarios at a mind-blowing C1 level. From your morning routine to ordering fast food and even navigating touchy subjects like flirting and breaking up, this lesson is going to give you the tools you need to use advanced vocabulary and grammar in real life. To a certain extent, some of these examples are a little bit dramatic. In all seriousness, my C1 students tell me that this is their favorite type of lesson. It's basically the most fun way to learn advanced English to make sure you get the most out of this incredibly useful lesson. Okay? Now you know what's happening. Let's dive into your daily routine at the C1 level. Get ready to learn how to describe your day-to-day life with really impressive vocabulary and grammar. The first thing you learn when you take your first English class is normally the daily routine, right? I wake up, I get up, I eat breakfast. And I thought, what would a daily routine look like at the C1 advanced level? I started to write this lesson just as a little experiment, and it ended up becoming so interesting that I've decided to make it into a video for you. In this lesson, I am going to give you a daily routine on steroids. And on steroids means the most extreme version or a very extreme version. In this daily routine, I am going to give you a ton of super advanced C1 vocabulary, and we're going to cover lots and lots of C1 level grammar structures. So, if you really want to test your English skills, this lesson is for you. I also want to mention before we start that this is going to be quite an extreme daily routine, and some people will probably want to let me know English people do not speak like this in real life. No, I totally agree. I just want to see how far we can go with advanced grammar and advanced vocabulary. All I know is it's going to be complex, and it's going to be fun. Upon waking up to the melodious chimes of my alarm clock, I embark on my well-established morning routine that I've perfected over the years. First and foremost, I indulge in a brief meditation session, allowing me to clear my mind and start the day with a sense of calm. In addition to my mental exercise, I dive into a challenging 30-minute workout session, but I guess it isn't so much challenging as it is invigorating. After freshening up, I pamper myself with my nourishing skincare regimen, ensuring a well-hydrated and glowing complexion. I told you this is a daily routine on steroids. In order to reach the C1 level of vocabulary and grammar, there aren't many people in the UK that speak like this on a daily basis. Okay, so in addition to loads of really great vocab, we also have quite a few C1 level grammar structures. Let's start by looking at these 3 clauses. What do you notice about them? We have upon waking up to the melodious chimes of my alarm clock. We have allowing me to clear my mind and start the day with a sense of calm. And we have ensuring a well-hydrated and glowing complexion. Well, these are known as non-finite clauses. A non-finite clause is a type of clause that doesn't have a subject and a finite verb. a verb with tense and agreement. In other words, it's an incomplete sentence that can't stand alone as a complete thought. Non-finite clauses use verbs in their base form, infinitive, or the ing form, the present participle, without specific subject information. These incomplete sentence-building blocks help add more context and information to our sentences. Now let's take a look at another structure in this paragraph. It isn't so much challenging as it is invigorating. So, using not so much plus adjective plus as plus adjective is an advanced comparative structure we use to compare two related qualities. Okay, I'm going to address one more grammar concept from this paragraph before we move on to the rest of my routine. Compound adjectives like well-established, 30-minute, and well-hydrated. So, compound adjectives are adjectives that are formed by combining two or more words to create a single descriptive term. These adjectives are commonly used to convey complex or specific qualities that may not be easily expressed with just one single word. I used several hyphenated compound adjectives in this first paragraph, and we use the hyphens to clarify that the words are meant to be taken together as a single descriptive unit. Right. Let's see what I get up to with the rest of my C1 extreme. This is going to get complex. No sooner have I got dressed in my most casual yet professional attire than I am wolfing down a hearty breakfast to fuel my day ahead. With a steaming cup of herbal tea in hand, I scan the morning headlines to stay informed on the happenings of the world. Meanwhile, as I commute to work, I immerse myself in an audiobook, relishing the well-written prose and captivating storytelling. Thus, I arrive at work ready to tackle the day ahead of me. Wow, that's really sounding like a novel at this point. Okay, let's see what we've got here. In the first sentence, no sooner have I got dressed in my most casual yet professional attire than I am wolfing down a hearty breakfast to fuel my day ahead. The construction, no sooner have I got dressed, is an example of negative inversion. Negative inversion is one of my favorite grammatical structures. I absolutely love the way it sounds, and when students learn it, they can instantly sound so intelligent when they speak. So, negative inversion is where the usual word order of a sentence is inverted or changed when a negative adverbial expression is used at the beginning of the sentence. The construction is important because it adds emphasis. I'm not just saying, I have got dressed, but I'm highlighting the immediacy of the action by using no sooner. This construction often indicates that one action happens immediately after another, almost without any delay. Using negative inversion helps to add a little flair to the story instead of sticking to the same subject-verb type construction. But it should be used sparingly. If you use it too much, it will sound pretty contrived. The final two sentences featured signposts, and no, I'm not talking about these. I'm referring to language like meanwhile and thus. Using signposting language like this is giving your writing a GPS. It helps steer your audience smoothly along and keeps your thoughts organized. These little words and phrases act as the glue that holds your writing together. Think of it this way. Without these signposting cues, your writing can get all jumbled up and end up sounding like a bunch of random thoughts. Let's do a quick comprehension check. Can you identify the signposting language in our first paragraph? I'll give you a few seconds to read through. Use your pause button now to have a read through. In 5 seconds, I'm going to give you the answers. Okay? You should have said first and foremost, in addition to, and after. Okay. What's the rest of my day looking like? Upon arriving at the office, I buckle down and get on with my work, meticulously completing my tasks in the most efficient way possible. It's knowing that I'm contributing in a meaningful way that I thrive on, and I actively seek opportunities to enhance my skill set. Throughout the day, I engage in productive dialogues with colleagues, synergizing ideas and learning from their unique perspectives. All right, we have a few things to look at here. First, we have the clause, meticulously completing my tasks in the most efficient way possible. This utilizes a post-modified superlative adjective. That's quite a mouthful. Post-modified superlative adjective. So, this is an adjective that is placed after the noun, and it modifies or adds emphasis or specific information about the noun. This construction is used to highlight the extreme quality of the noun in comparison to others of its kind. The structure of the second sentence was a bit of an odd one. It is knowing that I am contributing in a meaningful way that I thrive on, and I actively seek opportunities to enhance my skill set. We call this a cleft sentence. A cleft sentence is a grammatical construction used to emphasize a particular element in a sentence by dividing it into 2 clauses. I know I said that negative inversion was my favorite, but I actually think it ties with cleft sentences. Once you master these, it opens up an opportunity to really add some interest to your creative writing. The purpose of a cleft sentence is to bring attention to a specific part of the sentence, often by reorganizing the structure to highlight that element. In this case, I wanted to highlight knowing that I'm contributing in a meaningful way, so I was able to restructure my sentence to make sure that this portion of the sentence was the main focus. They're pretty nifty, these cleft sentences. Okay, let's move on to the final part of my routine. As the day draws to a close, I reflect on my achievements, striving to be the best version of myself both personally and professionally. All I hope is that I outdo my previous accomplishments each day as I embrace life with unwavering determination. By adopting this disciplined and purposeful routine, I feel confident that I can continue on a path of self-improvement and well-being. I feel like I'm becoming less and less likable as this daily routine goes on, but it's not about me, it's about the grammar. So, let's see what we have here. In the first sentence, as the day draws to a close, I reflect on my achievements, striving to be the best version of myself, both personally and professionally. We have a few different things going on here. First, we have as the day draws to a close, which is a subordinate clause, but by C1, you should already be familiar with them. These are clauses that can't stand on their own as individual sentences. They have to be attached to a main or independent clause. We also have a participle clause, striving to be the best version of myself, both personally and professionally. A participle clause is a type of non-finite clause. We discussed those before. Can you identify the other participle clause in this paragraph? That's right, it's the last sentence. By adopting this disciplined and purposeful routine. I can't say purposeful without going purposeful. Purposeful. It's quite a stuffy sounding word to me, quite old-fashioned, very purposeful. This participle clause also functions as an adverbial phrase because I use the preposition by, explaining how the action in the main clause is achieved. Finally, we saw another common construction of a cleft sentence, my other favorite. All I hope is that I outdo my previous accomplishments each day as I embrace life with unwavering determination. The structure what or all plus clause plus be plus clause is quite commonly used, so it's a good one to have in your back pocket. Oh my word, that was an intense lesson. That's probably one of the most advanced English lessons I have ever delivered. Okay, now that you can talk about your daily life like a pro, let's move on to food and drink. Everyone can relate to this topic, right? And now you'll learn how to discuss it at an advanced level. But before we dig into that, because we will talk about that phrase, hello, lovely students, and welcome back to Bookish English. Here's a question for you. When you learn another language, when you start to learn English, what is one of the first topics or topics you want to learn about, apart from swear words? Food and drink, obviously. You tick them off, you learn the basic vocabulary, and then you forget about them. I want to bring them back. Today, we're going to learn food and drink, C1 to C2 advanced level. Let's get started with the lesson. And I must say, when you get to a really advanced level of English, people like to say in the comment section, but people don't talk like this in real life. I agree with you. Lots of people don't. And it's not necessary. I would say reaching B2 is the level that allows you to really exist in English. C1 is when you are completely fluent to the point where you can have very nuanced conversations. The vocabulary we'll discuss today is the kind of vocabulary you might find in a piece of creative writing, or you might use with someone who is a real foodie or cooking enthusiast. Okay, let's start. I consider myself a bit of a foodie, but I'm definitely not a food snob. I'm just as happy tucking into a simple homemade meal as I am polishing off a Michelin-starred work of art. On a normal day, when I wake up, I force myself to gulp down a big glass of water before I indulge my caffeine addiction and brew an aromatic cup of coffee. That first swig always hits the spot. Fellow caffeine addicts, raise your hands. Sometimes I like to work up an appetite before breakfast by going for a run. Other times I can't wait, and I gobble down a steaming bowl of porridge immediately. Okay, here are some of the vocabulary I want to pick out. The first is the phrasal verb, to tuck in or to tuck into, and this means to start eating enthusiastically. After hours of preparation, everyone was ready to tuck into the roast dinner. The next one, to polish off, another phrasal verb, means to finish all of something, especially food. I always imagine polishing a plate because it's so clean because you've eaten everything. I can't believe you polished off that entire pizza by yourself. And next, to gulp down, another phrasal verb. This means to drink very quickly. After a run, I often gulp down a big glass of juice, and to gulp is to swallow. It sounds the same, gulp. The next is a verb, to brew, which means to make coffee or tea by adding hot water to the beans or the bag. The highlight of my morning is the fresh pot of coffee my husband brews every day. Sometimes we will call a cup of coffee or a cup of tea a brew. Do you fancy a brew as a noun? Next, we had an adjective, aromatic. Aromatic. And please focus on the pronunciation here. Aroma as a noun, aromatic. This means having a pleasant and distinctive smell. Spices like cardamom and cinnamon make curry an aromatic dish. Note that we can use it sarcastically. If I smell a dirty sock, I might say very aromatic, meaning it stinks. Number 6. This is a noun, a swig. It means an amount of something that you drink quickly, and it can also be used as a verb, meaning to have a large, quick mouthful of a liquid or gulp of a drink. After reaching the peak of the mountain, he took a big swig from his flask of iced tea. We take a swig. You can say, to have a swig, but take is the stronger collocation. We could also say, he swigged from his flask of iced tea, slightly less common. Number 7. Nice phrase here, to work up an appetite. To work up an appetite means to do something, normally strenuous, that makes you feel hungry. I was gardening all morning, and I really worked up an appetite. And the final one, a nice slang phrasal verb, to gobble down. To gobble down means to eat very quickly with lots of swallowing. It's just an emphasis here. This particle doesn't really change the meaning of the verb. A bit like with to sit and to sit down, there's no real change. We're just emphasizing the direction of the action. The food is going down. We sit down. An example. My dog always gobbles down his dinner as soon as I give it to him. That is so true. He really does gobble down. There's no better verb or phrasal verb to describe it. Okay, next part of the story. When I have time, I love nothing more than whipping up some dishes in the kitchen. When I was in Tuscany recently, I learned to make this incredibly flavorsome pasta sauce. The ingredients are so simple but fresh, and it's mouth-watering. I love cooking one-pot meals too because they're so easy, and there's minimal cleanup. Speaking of, we're very lucky to have a dog who hoovers up any stray crumbs, so our kitchen is usually pretty clean. Okay, there was a lot of good vocab in that passage, so let's have a look. Number 9, we have to whip up. To whip up is a nice slang phrasal verb. It means to cook something quickly, especially using whatever ingredients you have to hand. Don't worry, everyone. I'm going to whip up a gourmet feast of beans on toast. Beans on toast is a really typical British meal when you don't have any food in the house. We nearly always have a tin of Heinz baked beans. Or actually, now with inflation, we're buying supermarket brand ones and toast. So beans on toast is a very common I don't know what to make. I don't have anything. I'll make beans on toast. Next, number 10 is flavorsome. Flavorsome means delicious and full of flavor. Notice the pronunciation. Two schwa sounds there. Flavorsome. The sauce proved incredibly flavorsome, transforming the mundane dish into a culinary masterpiece. Next, we have the adjective mouth-watering. Mouth-watering describes food that looks so good you want to eat it right then. They served up a mouth-watering dish that tasted just as good as it looked. Next, something I love to make. A one-pot meal. A one-pot meal is a meal that can be cooked in one pot, and I want to draw your attention to how I pronounced it. Instead of saying one pot, I said one pot. The beauty of a one-pot meal is that there's barely any washing up to do afterwards. And the final one for this section is crumb, usually seen in the plural because there's almost always more than one. A crumb is a very small piece of bread, cake, biscuit, or food in general that has fallen off. Get a plate. You're dropping crumbs everywhere. Next part. According to my husband Will, my best dish is a chicken recipe by Ottolenghi, one of my favorite chefs. Whenever I make it, Will practically inhales it. It's incredibly Moorish, too, so we never have leftovers. What about my favorite foods? Some of you may know that I adore fruit, especially watermelon, but I also love blue cheese, especially some good Stilton. It's got quite a pungent smell, and I would say it's an acquired taste, but it's really yummy. I always put it out when I do nibbles when guests are coming over. Okay, let's have a look at the vocabulary. First up, number 14, to inhale. To inhale means to breathe in, literally. However, in the context of food, it means to eat very quickly. He was so hungry, he seemed to inhale his sandwich. The next is a lovely adjective, Moorish. Moorish describes something that is so delicious you want more of it. This cake is so Moorish, I can't stop eating it. Next, I love this one. The adjective, pungent. Pungent. I love the sounds together. Pungent. I feel it's so descriptive. It's not normally a very positive adjective because it means having a very strong smell or taste, normally smell. When we're talking about blue cheese, though, that's a good thing. That's what we pay for. An example, the durian fruit has quite a pungent smell. Next, I talked about something being an acquired taste, which means something that you might not like at first, but you start to enjoy over time. Olives are an acquired taste, and children often don't like them. I used to pretend to like olives as a child because I wanted to sit with the adults and have nibbles, and that was often the only thing on offer. If I stopped eating, they'd send me to bed. And the final word was the noun nibbles, which means small items of food that are normally eaten with your fingers. You will often see them on restaurant menus, nibbles, then starters, mains, desserts. We also have the verb to nibble, which means to take a small bite of something. And if you have a nibble of something, again, you take a small bite. But nibbles in general are little snacks you normally eat with your fingers. I put out some nibbles like cheese and crackers before dinner. Okay, last part of the story. Will and I also love eating out. If I know we're going somewhere special, I make sure to not spoil my appetite beforehand. Even so, my eyes are often bigger than my stomach, and I end up with too much food. Doggy bags aren't much of a thing in the UK, but I wish they were. I always walk out of a restaurant completely stuffed. Okay, finally, here are 4 more words and phrases to finish off this video. Number 19 is to spoil one's appetite. To spoil one's appetite means to eat something before a meal that causes you to fill up or not feel hungry. Don't have that chocolate bar. It'll spoil your appetite. Next, one's eyes are bigger than one's stomach. If your eyes are bigger than your stomach, it means you order or put too much food on your plate and you can't finish it. I always have eyes bigger than my stomach at a buffet. I want to pile my plate with absolutely everything, and then when I start eating, I realize I've taken way too much. An example. Sorry, I really can't finish this. My eyes were bigger than my stomach. The next phrase, and this one might surprise you, is doggy bag. A doggy bag is a bag or a box you get from a restaurant to take home your leftovers in, and it's more common in the US. It's becoming more of a thing in the UK. When I went to the US, I was really shocked at how big their portions were, but when I mentioned it to my American friends, they said, "Don't judge us because we take almost everything home with us at the end of the meal, and we have it as leftovers in our fridge." And it made perfect sense. For me in the UK, I would say we are more inclined and often pushed by our parents to finish everything on our plate. An example. Could I have a doggy bag, please? It was delicious, just a huge portion. And the final word I want to talk about is the adjective stuffed, which means very full. I couldn't eat another bite. I'm absolutely stuffed. Okay, that's it for your C1 food and drink lesson. Now that you've got a taste for food and drink vocabulary, let's focus on a specific scenario. Ordering a coffee. If you're not a coffee person, don't worry. These skills can be applied to ordering whatever your drink of choice might be. Let's take your coffee ordering skills to the next level. Hello, lovely students, and welcome back. Today, I decided to really push myself and push you too, and see if I could write a lesson about ordering a coffee in English at a C1 level. How advanced can we make ordering a simple cup of coffee? Oh, just watch me. It's going to get advanced. Right, let's get started. So we all know that ordering a coffee is one of the first things you learn in English, and it can be very simple. Can I have a coffee, please? This way of ordering a coffee is absolutely fine. It's perfect, in fact. Although it probably wouldn't work in somewhere like Starbucks, where an order is more like, "Can I get a doppio half-calf skinny mocha venti to go?" You love one of those. I know I do. But that's not what we're talking about today. I want to order a normal coffee in advanced English. And I know what some people are going to say when they hear my order. People never speak like that. I agree. I agree. It's not necessary, but it's fun, and it's cool. And if we can't have fun, cool English lessons, then what have we got? I think it's fun to see how far we can take it. And more importantly for you, I think it's a fun and memorable way to introduce some advanced grammatical structures and vocabulary. Are you ready? We're going to move up through the levels. Level 1. Black coffee, please. This is the simplest way to order a coffee, and it's perhaps not the most polite way to order in a coffee shop. But if you're ordering as part of a group after dinner, for example, I think it's fine. The addition of please at the end, though, is important. Let's take it up a notch. Level 2, can I have a black coffee, please? Here, the request is formulated as a question using the modal verb can, which makes it more polite than the first one. You will often hear this said as, "Can I get a black coffee, please?" This is slightly more common in American English, but it's making its way into British English. Some people don't like the use of get here, but a lot of native speakers use it. Now, let's say this more politely. Level 3. May I please have a black coffee with a splash of milk? All right, we're getting a little bit more complex here. This is a very polite way to order a coffee using the modal verb may. You can also replace may with the modal verb could, which is a more polite way to make requests than can. You can also see that the word please has moved from the end to directly after may. This front-loading of please emphasizes the politeness of the request and sets a formal tone from the outset. We are also now asking for a splash of milk, and a splash means a small amount of liquid in this context. Okay, can I go further? Level 4. Could you kindly prepare a black coffee with a splash of milk and 2 sugars? Okay, we're getting closer to advanced level here and further from reality. Now we have the modal verb could, which I talked about in level 3. And instead of please, we can see the adverb kindly. This is another way to soften a request and make it more polite. Let's add a little more advanced language. Level 5. Would it be possible for you to brew a medium-sized black coffee with a splash of milk, 2 sugars, and a sprinkling of cinnamon on top? All right. This one is even more polite and a bit poetic as well. Would it be possible is a very polite way to form a question. We also have some more advanced vocabulary, including to brew, meaning to make a hot drink like coffee or tea, and sprinkling, which means a small amount of liquid or powder that is dropped onto a surface. Can I make it even more advanced? Level 6, and we're not even at the end yet. If it's not too much trouble, could you please craft a medium-sized black coffee enriched with a splash of organic milk and precisely 2 cubes of raw sugar, while ensuring it's brewed to the optimum temperature, and then garnish it with a delicate sprinkling of cinnamon on top? We're moving into nightmare customer territory now. If it's not too much trouble is a very polite way of asking someone to do something. We often add it to the beginning of a request, often when we know the request is going to cause some extra effort. Now we're asking for the barista to craft the coffee, not just make one. Craft means to make objects in a skilled way, especially with your hands, and the coffee is to be enriched with a splash of milk. To enrich means to make the quality of something better by adding something else. Then it is to be brewed to the optimum temperature. Optimum means best possible. You might hear the synonym optimal or optimum used in American English. And then we have garnished with cinnamon. To garnish means to decorate food or drink with a small amount of food. Can this customer get any worse? Yes. The answer is yes. If you've ever worked in retail or hospitality, you know the answer is yes. Here is my coffee order in its final form. Level 7. Would you be so kind as to commence the artisanal preparation of a medium-sized black coffee sourced, if possible, from single-origin beans and brewed at precisely 89 N? It should be complemented with a splash of organic, locally sourced milk, sweetened to a modest degree with exactly 2 cubes of raw sugar, and adorned with a subtle yet discernible sprinkling of hand-rolled cinnamon. Finally, if I may, I request that it be presented in a ceramic mug featuring a handle ergonomically designed for a right-handed individual. Someone is definitely going to spit in this customer's coffee. Let's look at the grammar. Would you be so kind as to is a very, very polite and formal way to make a request. And in the final sentence, you saw the structure I request that it be presented. This sentence uses the subjunctive mood, which is a formal structure in English and appears after certain verbs like request and the vocabulary. First, there is to commence, which means to begin. We had artisanal meaning, prepared in a traditional way. We have complemented, this is the verb, to complement with an E. It's different from the one with an I. If one thing complements with an E another, it goes well with the other thing and makes it better. We complement each other. We go well together. We make each other better. We compliment each other means we give each other compliments. I like your dress. I like your hair. I like your coffee. What did you ask for? I'm going to ask for that. Little did she know we also have adorned with. The verb to adorn means to add something decorative to a person or thing to make it more attractive. We also have the adjectives subtle and discernible. Subtle means not obvious or noticeable, while discernible means able to be recognized. So, I wanted it subtle but discernible. H, nightmare. And finally, perhaps the most egregious request. An ergonomically designed handle. Ergonomically means in a way that makes something, equipment, or furniture comfortable and effective for people who use it. What did you think of my C1 level coffee order? Is it realistic? No. Is it interesting? I think so. And I hope it will help you to remember some of the structures and vocabulary that I've presented. We really do use all of these words and phrases in real life. Okay, now it's time to shift gears and spice things up. In this lesson, we're going to explore the art of flirting in English. You're going to learn colloquial language and slang that will help you navigate these exciting social interactions. Let's get flirty. Hello, you gorgeous things, and welcome to my super advanced lesson on flirting. In this lesson, I am going to show you how you can ask someone out, how you can flirt with someone at a C1 to C2 advanced level. We're going to be focusing on British English slang, and we'll also touch on some pronunciation as well. Okay, let's start with the first one. This is a baseline. It doesn't have any slang. It's a starting point so that you can make comparisons with later passages. Let's try it. Ready? My friend doesn't think you'll agree to go on a date with me, but I'd love to take you out for dinner sometime. Nice and simple. A nice easy start. That's our baseline. Let's move to the next level. Level 2. I've been wanting to ask you out all night, but my mate told me I had no chance of getting a date with you. He'll be absolutely speechless if you say yes. So, do you want to get a bite to eat? No pressure. So, did you understand all of that? It wasn't too advanced, but there are a few words that I really want to look at. The first one is mate. Mate here, in this context, means friend, and it's really common in British English. But it's even more common in Australian English. For example, my mates encouraged me to ask you out. The second word is the informal contraction wanna, which is short for want to. Some people pronounce it wanna. Others wanna with more of an O sound. Some use a wanna as an alternative. An example: do you want to go for a drink sometime? And the final phrase from that text is a bite to eat. A bite to eat. Now, notice the pronunciation here. In fast speech, when one word ends in a vowel sound and the next one starts with a vowel sound, we often add an extra sound to make it easier to say. In this case, the extra sound is W, a bite to eat. But what does it mean? Well, a bite to eat often means a small meal. However, we also use it in conversation to ask if someone wants to go out for something to eat. Not necessarily something small. It's just very informal. For example, fancy getting a bite to eat at the local pub? Note that you will also hear bite on its own or a bite on its own. Fancy a bite later? Fancy something to eat later? Now, before I move on, I also want to talk about something in this question. You might have noticed that do is missing from it. Instead of saying, do you want to get a bite to eat? I just say, you want to get a bite to eat? In informal speech, we often omit auxiliary verbs like do from questions. If we want to go super informal, we can omit you as well. Want to get a bite to eat? Okay, I can do better than this. We can go more advanced. Let's try level 3, ready? You are by miles the most stunning person in the room, and I've been weighing up whether to come over all night. My mate over there, the slightly trolleyed one, told me I didn't have a chance in hell of getting you to go out with me. He's going to be gobsmacked if you agree. So what do you reckon? You want to go out for a slap-up meal sometime? No worries if not. Okay. How did you do with that? It's definitely getting more advanced. Not too advanced, though. It doesn't sound like you're trying to be Shakespeare. The first phrase is by miles. By miles. You can also say by far. It means by a very large amount or by a long way. We do not use the metric system when we use this phrase. We can't say by kilometer. It just doesn't sound right. An example: you're the funniest person I've ever met. By miles. By a long way. We also had to weigh up. To weigh up is a phrasal verb that means to think carefully about doing something before making a decision. There is another linking sound in that phrase. To weigh up, weigh up. Can you hear it? We insert a little Y sound. My next word is extremely colloquial. Trolleyed, trolleyed. This means very drunk. Ben's trolleyed, get him a taxi. And next, we have an idiom, to not have a chance in hell. Sometimes we omit the in hell part. We just say to not have a chance, and even sometimes to not stand a chance. We also use it with the verb to be. There's no chance in hell that he will go out with you. Now, this example might sound a little bit mean, but it's an example of British banter, our humor. We often say these kinds of things to close friends, knowing, hopefully, that they will know that it's a joke. It's like playful teasing. It can go too far. But be prepared for it if you come to Britain and mix with Brits. Next, I just want to mention gonna from that text. It's another informal contraction, just like wanna. Gonna is generally pronounced with the schwa, gonna. You gonna ask him out or not? You gonna ask him out or not? Another great word, super informal. Gobsmacked. Gobsmacked. So gob is quite a rude, informal slang word for mouth. Shut your gob. If you are gobsmacked, you are so surprised that you can't speak. You smack your mouth. I'm gobsmacked. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. It's very informal. I was gobsmacked when he turned up to our date wearing a tuxedo black tie. The final word that I want to point out from that text is an adjective, slap up, which often comes before the word meal. This means a very large and delicious meal. But I will tell you a secret. I didn't understand the meaning of this for a very long time. I thought a meal that was a slap-up meal was something that was just slapped up in the kitchen, something that was made in a really careless way. So honestly, if someone had invited me for a slap-up meal, I'd have said, well, maybe you could put in a little bit more effort. An example. I'd love to take you out for a slap-up meal sometime. A really large and delicious and luxurious meal. That was good, but I think we can make it even more advanced. Here is number 4. Level 4. The final level. Ready? My mate, the tipsy one by the bar, is absolutely sick of me banging on about how stunning you look, and told me to shut my cake hole and do something about it. Anyway, I decided nothing ventured, nothing gained, so I'm here to ask you out for dinner. He'll be floored if you say yes. Maybe literally. He's more than tipsy, to be honest. And I'll be well chuffed to get a date with the fittest person in London. No stress if you don't fancy it, though. Okay, how was that one? Would you say yes to me? It was packed full of slang, so let me break some of it down for you. We have to be sick of something. If you are sick of something, you are bored of something, because it's annoying. It's repetitive. You will also hear people say, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of this. I'm bored of this. An example, I'm sick of you talking about Dylan. Either ask him out or stop. We also have to bang on about something to bang on about. This means to talk for a long time about something in a way that is annoying. Ruth's been banging on about her date for hours. Did you notice that when I'm trying to be extra informal, instead of saying banging with the eing sound at the end, I said banging, banging? And sometimes we do this for emphasis. It also sometimes happens when we talk quickly. I've been singing for hours, singing for hours, should be singing. The next word is possibly the funniest one on my list. Cakehole, cakehole, which is British slang for mouth. Isn't that wonderful? It's literally the hole that you put cake into. So, we've had gob and cakehole. This is an incredibly rude lesson. It's not a polite word, but you will often hear it in the phrase, shut your cake hole, shut your mouth. In American English, they often say pie hole, which maybe means that Americans prefer pie over cake. Now, I want to talk about the idiom, nothing ventured, nothing gained. This is a proverb meaning that you have to take risks to achieve something or to get something good. If you don't take any risks, you won't get the reward. An example, just ask Raby on a date. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Next, let's look at the verb to floor, which means to confuse or to surprise someone so much that they don't know what to say. Very slang here. You saw this phrase in the passive voice, he'll be floored, but you can also use it in the active voice. Amelia floored me when she asked me if I wanted to dance. I didn't think she knew who I was. After that, you heard the most marvelous slang adjective, chuffed, chuffed, which means very happy or proud or sometimes even satisfied in a really positive way. I was really chuffed, surprised, and happy. I was really chuffed when Tom gave me his phone number. Or I was so chuffed with my exam result. We sometimes say, well chuffed or chuffed to bits for emphasis. Using well instead of very, or incredibly is uber slang. It's not traditionally grammatically correct, but it's a common feature in many dialects. You look well nice today. That food is well good.